Hello, nice to meet all of you. Sorry for the delay, we got some technical difficulty. I guess that's why previous person said that speed is king, right? We didn't do it fast enough, so you guys are like late, kind of like frustrated. So, all right. So my name is Aung Kyaw Paing. I've been working in the software industry for like more than 8 years now, and I'm currently working as a consultant at Thoughtworks. And one of the specialties that I have in Thoughtworks is about accessibility. So I've been working with, with some of my clients around these accessibility issues, social issues, and trying to educate them on more of this social awareness thing, and also helping them develop more accessible software. So today I make this talk to basically share my knowledge back with all of you on how you and I, as a software engineer, can build more inclusive world for the future. So when we talk about accessibility, right, it's actually not a very new thing. In fact, I'm pretty sure you might have seen this kind of thing in your daily life. On the left, what you can see is a tactile paving. If you go to Bangkok Street, some of the streets have this tactile paving. So this is basically for people with low vision to see where the street ends at night, so that they don't cross the street by mistake. And the middle one you might have seen here, if you take the elevator here, or any elevator, is that there's a braille engraving on the number. So this is for people with blindness, that they can touch it and then they can read the floor number like you and I do. And the last one here, it doesn't really show all the way to the end, I think because of the aspect ratio, but that's the accessible ramp. You might have seen this in super shopping malls and office tower, where this is used by people with motor impairment who cannot move their legs or who have difficulty moving their legs, to use this rail to basically move up the ladder without having to climb the stair. And one of the best examples about a very simple product that we've seen in our daily life is a pedestrian crossing button. This one is from Singapore, and Singapore pedestrian button is one of the top accessible button in the world. And the reason that is because it was engineered and designed in a way that it is inclusive for people with disabilities. So the first thing you can see that the button is like pretty big, and you cannot really miss it. So if you're someone with motor impairment who cannot move hand very well and have difficulty pressing small buttons, this one is very good because you can just press very easily. I think this year they're also trying out something called contactless button. So you can just go in front of it and then it will automatically turn on the pedestrian crossing for you. And it also has a light indicator with a very bright red and green light. This is for people with low vision, especially those who have difficulty seeing at night. I have a problem called night blindness, where at night and in low lighting area, I cannot see anything. So for these people, this button is very useful. This light indicator is very useful because we can see the light very brightly and we can tell what's happening. And for people with blindness who cannot really see the light, there's a sound indicator which plays something like a beep, 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 and then when you can cross the road, it'll play beep, 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 beep at a much higher frequency. So this is for people with blindness who cannot see it. They can listen to the sound and they can still cross the road. And for those people who have full problem with blindness and in the ear, but with the deafness, there's a vibration indicator on the panel. So you can just put your hand on the panel and you can feel the vibration. And the vibration also play a different frequency. So you can tell when you can cross the road just by putting a hand on the button here. And it's also very good in a way that it's set up at a height that is reachable by people with wheelchair. So it's not just for people who can walk normally. If you're someone who have problem like dwarfism, for example, you can also press this button very easily because it's in a good position for you to press. So even a small thing that we can see in our daily life can be engineered and designed in a way that it is inclusive for everybody. And when we talk about common things that we see every day, we cannot forget about the internet itself. Do you know that the internet was born out of accessibility requirements? The co-founder or one of the founding father of the internet, called Vint Cerf, he was born deaf and he was born colorblind. And one of the problems he has was because at the time when there is no internet, people use telephone to talk to each other, right? But because he's deaf, he cannot use telephone and he cannot talk to his loved one. So he developed a protocol for email, which is used widely everywhere in the internet right now. And And this allowed him to talk with his friend without having to rely on ear only. He can read the email and can write the email back to his loved ones. But even though the internet was born out of accessibility requirements and inclusion requirement, a lot of things on the internet right now, today, in this age, is not really meant for people with disability right now. most of us, like you and me, still think accessibility is an afterthought and not really as a one important thing. Which is quite sad to see, as one of the founders of the Father said, that it's really weird that the computer that we use today is considered as a most modern technology, but however, how come such a most modern technology does not even help people with disability, right? It shouldn't happen. And the sad thing about this is like when we, as a software engineer, doesn't care about accessibility, there are real world consequences to people in real life. For example, in Singapore, they did a research and found out that people with blindness, they spend 30% more time in their work just because they are using websites that are not really accessible, or developer tools that are not really accessible. So this means even though they have the same skill sets as everyone else, they get lower salary, they get lower pay raise, and they are considered as they are basically viewed as a person that doesn't really contribute as much as to the company as other people do. So which is something that shouldn't happen, and because that is not their fault, right? The fault is because the website is not really accessible. So because we, as a software engineer, doesn't care about these things, they have to struggle with their livelihood. And this is not just about blind people, actually. They are globally, they are estimated to be over 1.3 billion people who face some kind of common disability, and this means that 1 in 6 people face some kind of common disability, which is a lot of people when you think about it. 1 in 6 people. When I talk about common disability, it's just really just about these 5 things. These are considered as a major disability or common disability. So hearing is where it could be a partial deafness in your ear, or you could be fully deaf. The second thing is vision impairment, where it could be stuff like color blindness, partial blindness, or it could be nearsightedness, long-sightedness. All of these things include in the vision impairment. And the third thing is speech impairment, where it could be stuttering, for example, or you could be a mute, and you cannot speak very well like other people. And motor impairment is where you cannot move your body very well. This could be your hand, your leg, or even your head, where you cannot move very well. And cognition impairment is not really something that people talk about a lot. It's considered as is when your brain functions differently from other people. So this could be stuff like people with various spectrums of autism, for example. It could also be memory loss. I know that older people, especially my mom, tend to forget a lot. So when you make your content very long, they tend to forget everything they read in the beginning. So these are also considered as a part of the cognition impairment, right? So anything that has to do with brain is considered cognition impairment. And the thing about common disability is it's not really just about that 1.3 billion people. It actually affects everyone in our daily life. Excuse me, sorry. I just recovered from COVID, so I still got some cough in my system. So for example, think about hearing, right? Have you ever been in a cafe where it is very loud for you to hear anything, and then you got a very important call from your friend or your family member, but because your environment is very noisy, you cannot pick up the call and talk to your friend. This is also considered as a part of the temporary disability, or we call it situation disability. Wouldn't it be nice if your phone has some kind of feature where it basically captions the word for you on the screen, and like for example Zoom meeting does it. So in that case, even in a noisy environment, you can still call your friend. Another example could be around motor impairment, where you come back from a shopping trip, and you have a very big shopping bag in your hand, and because of this, you cannot really use your hand very well. So in that case, you might resort to something like a single-handed mode. I know that some of the keyboard on the mobile phone, they have something called single-handed mode, where you can press the keyboard easily with one hand. So when we do accessibility feature, it doesn't just about these 16% of the population. It's actually affect everybody, and it makes the life easier for every user of your application. And when I mean everyone, I mean everyone. It also includes you as a business, right? So how does a business can benefit from doing accessible feature? So one thing is about revenue, right? So if there's a very interesting survey done in I think 2019 by a foundation called Click Waypound Survey. And they found out that in the United Kingdom, people simply just click away the website if they feel like the website is not accessible enough. And because of this, annually, the website in UK, the e-commerce website in UK, they lost out on 17 billion pounds per year, just because their website is not accessible, which is a lot of revenue loss when you consider this picture in your mind. And in some countries, they have a very strict law. So if you're going to make an app that's going to, not just in Thailand, but for people worldwide, you need to consider about this law and make sure you comply with these laws. So when you do this feature already ahead of time, if you want to expand your market, it's very easy for you. Or it could just be about better user experience. Just like I said before, right? Feature like closed caption, for example, can help everyone. And also, when you make your app more adaptive, I know that people with disability, they tend to use more tablet compared to phone. So as you make your design more adaptive, it may be better user experience for everybody. And then, sorry, give me a second. And then you could also make your brand image more inclusive. There's a research done on global disability report is that there's a spending of like 13 trillion per year by disabled household. So this means that if your brand is more representing these kind of people, you might also receive those revenue from these people. One of the good examples on what this done right is this video game called The Last of Us. So this game was developed for, I think, PS4, and it literally changed the game industry to the point that the Games Award for the year introduced a new award called Innovation in Accessibility, just to give award to this game. And one interesting thing about that game is that the developer behind the game, the Naughty Dog, they found out that some of the features that they developed was for people with blindness, but they quickly found out that even people without blindness started using this feature. One of the examples that mentioned here is auto pickup, which is a feature where it automatically picks up the item around you without you having to find it by yourself. This is useful for people with blindness, so they cannot spend so much time finding this item, right? But then, a lot of people who just want to progress the story, or they don't have time to do these chores in the game, they started enabling this feature because it makes their life a lot easier for them. The point that I'm trying to make here is when we make accessible feature, it is not just about people with disability. It is about everyone, and even people without disability can use your feature if they want to do it. And this might make the experience better for them. But the good thing about is, when we talk about, there's a great survey done by Web AIM. They do the survey every year. I think the next one is going to be in February this year. And they found out that they have a very interesting question here called, why does people with disability think the apps are not accessible? Right? Even though we have good example of them, but a lot of the website is not really accessible. The reason that is not really because we cannot do it. It's just, number one reason that they think is because people are not just aware about this issue at all, that this is a problematic issue. And second thing, because people are not aware about it and talking about it, there's not many people who try to build up these skills and knowledge on this area of technology. This is one of the reasons why I make this talk. When I read this report, I find out that, okay, awareness is the most biggest issue, right? So I want to solve this problem. So I want to bring some awareness in this talk, basically. And to bridge the second one about the skill and knowledge, I want to give you some tips and tricks that you can use in your software starting today, so that you can make your app more accessible. So before we go on to tips and tricks, I want to talk about how people with disability use your software. People like you and me, we can use a keyboard and mouse to interact with our computer, and for mobile, we can use our fingers and our hand to interact with it. But people with disability use a different method to interact with our system. There's a specialized accessibility hardware that they use. Number one thing is a screen reader. I think most of the modern browser and OS already have this built in, where it basically reads the content out for you. So if you're someone who cannot see the screen, you can listen to what the computer is saying, and you can still interact with your system. On the top right, we have accessibility switches. I did bring one, but I forgot to put it in my bag, so I couldn't show you the real one, real life version. But you can see the picture over there. So these switches they are different kind of switches, not just these two. They are pillow switches used by people with motor impairment to basically detach the button with their head like this. And there's also foot switches like this, similar to the pedal in the car. They can tap like this, and then they can interact with your computer. And one of the examples here on the top right is what we call a half and puff switch, where you control the system by using your breathing. So you have to go next, and then you puff to go back, basically, out to interact. And on the bottom left here, we have Braille display. So this is similar to screen reader, but instead of reading it out loud, it basically translated in the Braille format for you, so that you can still touch it and feel it, and you can read it. And the last one is a project Game Face made by Google. I think that's what made in like 2 years ago. It's an open source project, still in development to this day. It basically uses an AI model to detect your facial gesture. You control your computer through your facial gesture. So this is for people with motor impairment who cannot move their arms and leg. They can still control the computer with their face, basically. And the good thing about that is, we as a developer, we don't really need to go very low level to interact with this hardware, all of these different hardware. Most of the modern OS and modern browser already handle this for you. The EFT services already built in the OS and frameworks. So what you and I need to do as a software engineer is just to translate our human-readable UI into a machine-readable format. Basically, we just tell the system that, hey, here is a list of components that you can read. And then we provide some metadata to it. For example, a button can have a label on what should happen when you press on it. And you can also tell the that, hey, this is not important for accessibility. You can skip it if you want. And just by telling the system this format, the system translates it for you, and then it will automatically translate in the correct format for those different types of hardware. And doing this is not really that difficult. You can do it during your software development lifecycle. It's a little bit varied depending on your framework and your system that you're developing for. But most of the time, the logic and the core principle behind it is the same. I'm not really going to go dig deep on how you can do this for each platform because it will take a lot of time. But instead, I'll give you some tips and tricks that you can use. One of the things around color. Whenever you see color in your system, think about this. Am I using color as my main source of communication? If you think it is, change it. Instead of using color, you can use shape or text to communicate differently. So the example here is from a board game called Wingspan. So instead of using color as a token, it used different shape as a token to communicate with the user for people with color blindness. And in some part of the world, some of the researchers are already trying to re-engineer the traffic light to have to represent different things for different color. And one of the examples here is a unisignal, but this is still in a very early stage. It's still very problematic to use in real life, but they are already trying to research on this and trying to make the life better for everyone. Another example that you might have seen in e-commerce website is this, where if you go and select the color here, it automatically changes the text for you. So if you're someone with color blindness, you can just select different color, and then you can see which color you selected correctly. These are very useful, accessible feature made by e-commerce website. And whenever you use image in your website or your software, you need to provide a label to it. We call it alt text, which is a short for alternative text. And if your platform has some user-generated content, I recommend using something like a ChatGPT to generate this alternative text for you based on the image, and you should also provide a way to edit this value for the user. Twitter did a very good job. X did a very good job. You can go and check out how it does in the X application and try to play around with it and see how it works. Another thing is about landmark. So whenever you develop a website, provide landmark for your system. There's a survey done in the WebAIM survey that I think 40% of the people use it whenever possible because the landmark allow people with disability to skip the content to see what they actually want to see. BBC did a very good job here in their website, and you can skip all the stuff like navigation here, search here, and get to the content that you want to read. So if you're reading news, right, you don't care about all of the thing at the top. So they can skip to the actual content very easily. There are other tips and tricks that I can share, but it will take a lot of time. For example, if you have a button, you need to make it bigger touchable area. If you're using text in your system, make it simple and plain language. And also, make it less than 25 words in your sentence. Because there's a research done that if they are more than 25 words, people sometimes lost track of what they are reading. And this is also bad for people with cognitive disability, where their brain functions differently from us. But another guideline that you can read is also here. Don't worry about all of these links. I shared the slide with the organizer already, and you can get it from them and you can check out this link by yourself. But you can also email me later, or come and talk to me. I can share it to you. But one thing to remember is that at the top, we have a web content accessibility guideline. So this is a global standard for web accessibility. It was made by a consortium. You check it out. It's really, really detailed. It's really, really good. They are currently in version 2.1 now, I think. And in the 2.1, they also have a mobile session. So if you're making a mobile-friendly website, check that out as well. And if you're doing native app, for example, Android, iOS, there's a guide from Google and Android on this thing. And there's a channel called Mob Accessibility, made by Chris. He's the guy who helped on the mobile session for the web accessibility content guideline. I talked with him a little bit. He was very helpful and helping me learn about these accessibility issues and stuff. And check out his channel. And on the YouTube, it's very, very good. He explained very well about this issue. And the last thing is about that's a very good topic on what we can do for our future. It gives you some good example on the real hardware. It's not just about like technology. It's more about real life stuff. So check it out as well if you're making hardware stuff. Right, the last thing I want to talk about is around just testing, because people tend to gloss over testing most of the time. And of course, accessibility can be tested automatically by using the various tools. You have, for example, the same thing that mentioned for the performance talk in the previous talk. You can use Lighthouse again. Lighthouse also has an accessibility test suite where you can put your website in and it will automatically generate a score for you and give you some recommendation. Same thing for Android. There's an Android accessibility scanner that you can use. Also, same thing, it takes a screenshot of your application, and then it gives you a recommendation like, hey, your text is very small, you should make it bigger. Your button is very small, make it bigger. Your color contrast is not good for people with color blindness, for example. But the thing to know about accessibility is at the end, it's just about user experience, right? So just like every other user experience, you cannot really automate everything. You have to test it with the actual user. This means if you have a beta test group or alpha test group in your company, try to include some people with disability and also make it diversify your background so that you include all of this feedback in your testing feedbacks. Another thing that I recommend you do when you go back from this talk, maybe take a shower, maybe take a nap, and when you wake up, give like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then find a blindfold for you and then put it on. And then try to use your software with the accessible stuff. For example, screen reader. You can try VoiceOver if you're using Mac. On Android, there's a talkback that you can turn it on. And then try to see if it's as easy to use your software as you normally would do. I did this for my software with my client, and we quickly found out that our software is not really that accessible, which also brings a lot of like empathy for us, because we try to do it ourselves. We found out that, oh, these are the problems that people are facing in their daily life. So this makes it more empathetic and more relatable for you, which might bring you more motivation to solve this social problem as well. So I recommend you go back to your home and you try this out by yourself. Just 15 minutes, not that much. And whenever we talk about accessibility, it's not just about developer and tester. Accessibility is a collaborative effort at the end of the day. This means everyone in your team should be responsible and should be accountable for this kind of stuff. One thing I want to start making changes is to stop thinking accessibility as an afterthought. Don't think of it as a feature that you add after you finish something. Think of it from the beginning. So when you go to requirement gathering or requirement inception, you think about this issue and you think about how you can solve the accessible problem from the beginning of your requirement. And then you include this in your in your story, make it as part of the assessment criteria, and make sure when you test it, you also test it and before you make it as done. This means that everyone like you and me, not just developer, tester, product owner, everyone is responsible to make our future more accessible for everybody. Okay, time's up. Okay, so I just want to make a very shameless plug here. If you're interested about this accessible thing and responsible tech, at Thoughtworks we are very passionate about this. So we wrote a playbook on this kind of stuff. You can download and read it for free at this link. Check it out. It's more than just accessibility. There are stuff like how to reduce carbon emission and stuff like that. So responsible tech is to make sure your technology align with the ethics and moral value of the society, basically. And if you're someone who is interested in this social issue and want to fix a life and improve the social problem in our tech industry, feel free to contact me. We are looking for more engineers all the time. So if we can have a nice check, and then I can refer to you if you are also interested in the job. Right, that's it for my talk, actually. Thanks you for everyone. You can follow me on this blog post, or if you have any question, you can ask me right now. I think we still have like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
I think 10
we
minutes.
do have time.
Yeah, 10 minutes, yeah. But you can also contact me on this email if you have any question. I will also be around the event, so if you have any question you don't want to ask right now, you can come and find me later, and then you can ask me there. Yep, thanks you, everyone.
All right, thank you. So, if everyone have questions for Aung here? Okay, so I got everybody already craving for food or something. So
I get that. I'm
so
also
I have-
hungry.
So I have a small gift for you. And, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
All right, thank you. Everybody, this is Aung.